Hello everybody and warm welcome to the Blockchain Technology and Applications course offered by the University of Nicosia for the Master's degree in Digital Currency. This is an introductory video for session 4. In this session, we will talk about the incentive structures and the motivation that drives participants to act by the rules. This will be a short introduction to the game theory. It is about how participants interact among each other in order to achieve their preferred goals. It is an interesting topic, but can get quite involved, especially when people try to create models, verify or prove them, run simulations, etc. However, this session aims to help you better understand the interactions of actors in public blockchain networks and help you to navigate through many discussions and papers on this topic that are available online. So we will take a look at what incentive structures Bitcoin has, the diminishing coin-based rewards and transaction fees. We can classify actors into users, miners, developers, and businesses. They can cooperate to a greater or a lesser extent. They can even be in several or all categories at the same time. And what incentives these actors have in Bitcoin? Some are direct, like what miners receive for their work, but some are more indirect. An interesting observation is that full nodes in Bitcoin have no direct rewards, and since they do have an important role in the network, some researchers are suggesting they should be rewarded as well. Another thing to consider is the encouragement of developers. Should they be paid? Should they be paid in advance? Are they supposed to work for free or just for the recognition in the community? These are the topics that differ from Bitcoin to Ethereum, at least to some extent. Then we will touch upon some of the basics of game theory field, starting by describing the basic building blocks like the notion of players or self-interested agents that they are sometimes called, their strategies in the game, and utility functions that they cherish. We will continue with first describing the non-cooperative games like common payoff games of pure coordination and zero-sum games of pure competition. We will go through an example of the prisoner's dilemma, one of the more known games, where we also learn about the equilibrium states, which tell us how the game will probably end. Later, we will mention cooperative games, where players can get better results if they work together. And finally, we will talk about mechanism design, which is an important concept and can be described as a reverse game theory, where we start with the goal first, we set a goal, we describe it, and then we design the whole system according to that goal we have in mind. An example of mechanism design could be the initial distribution of bitcoins, and we can compare that initial distribution to how it was made in Ethereum. We will also talk a little bit about the multitude of Bitcoin forks with regards to the game theory aspects, since this was a very vibrant space in Bitcoin in 2017. What we can do is at least to get some idea of what might happen in the future, we can compare it to the Ethereum ecosystem, which had its split to two networks earlier, where one branch is called Ethereum and the other is called Ethereum Classic. So the Ethereum Classic is continuing on the original blockchain, and what we are now calling Ethereum is a fork from that blockchain. And we can perhaps speculate whether a similar developments could repeat in Bitcoin as well. We will conclude the session with a more general overview of risks to the blockchain security, beside the technical ones. We have game theory on one side and engineering on the other, so while both aspects are of course important, even crucial, we must also consider the wider context, the whole surroundings of blockchains. A couple of examples of security challenges or security issues are provided in the way of links, and while you are invited to read more about them, these subjects are probably some of the most involved ones. But we will also mention what some actors might do to disturb the operation of a particular blockchain system, which might seem irrational at the first glance. However, we need to be aware that some might have special interests to interrupt, shut down, or otherwise attack some network. Blockchains are a bit special compared to other computer networks in that they deal with money more directly, and so the stakes could be higher. On that note, while the current ecosystem is perhaps beyond complete comprehension due to its developing nature, we can argue with at least a degree of confidence that the more such a network is worth in total, the harder it is to undermine it with external pressure. So taking control of concentrated hashing power of development teams, the potential for coding bugs, and so on, all this could be mitigated by further decentralizing these elements and allowing for a larger plurality of options, which is under the influence of the market forces already. And while the ecosystem matures even more, it could be made increasingly more resilient. So the bigger the system gets, the harder it will be to undermine its operation. And while public blockchains are under constant attacks, sometimes they are called to be anti-fragile. So they are forced to improve and develop constantly, as opposed to a more closed networks, which are isolated and in some ways could live in a false certainty of security. And with that, we will leave a few questions open, and we are open to discussion about various issues and challenges that what future might bring to these systems. This concludes this session. Hopefully we have raised your interest in these topics. You are invited to share your opinions and comments on the forums. For any questions and any other help you might need, please don't hesitate to reach out and write an email. Thank you and happy studying!